tea. So I thought, well, I'm waiting on my tea. I'm watching a YouTube video, the kind that I watch. And, oh God, I've got to be honest. I'm going to be completely honest with you here. I totally understand why people in the mental health industry look at somebody like me and would automatically think I'm nuts. Because, like, I'm currently watching this video, right, where this woman in it who has been investigated for a double murder. She's in a cult and she claims to talk to God. I've seen about 3 videos, I think, today where these women are claiming they can talk to God. And like, there's a lot of people that, I mean, technically we can all talk to God, but like, like they claim that they're like chosen ones and blah, blah, blah. So, like, I get it. I totally understand. There's been so many situations in these videos where I've thought, oh, so that's why they thought I was like that. My whole issue with what happened to me is because I was able to prove everything, evidentially speaking. I can back everything up with evidence. It's like only now that my codes have started dropping with like King Charles and everything that's happening in the world that I said was going to happen. It's only now people are going, oh, yeah, so maybe she isn't like the others. No, I'm not like the others. Had they have done their job in the first place, none of this would have even happened. And now they're going to be losing their medical licenses. That hospital's going to get shut down. They're going to get sued so hard. Their grandchildren are going to feel it in the back of their teeth, because what they did to me was absolutely horrendous. And I was raised to respect police officers, people of the cloth, and people in the medical profession. That they got your respect regardless. And other than people of the cloth, I was let down by the police and the doctors and nurses simply for the fact that they don't know what they're dealing with. Because they've been taught everything from a textbook and they're all about find the part of the brain where the issue is and nuke it with a medication, they don't care about getting to the root problem of why the person is the way they are. They'll look at it and go, oh, so they're experiencing this, so we'll give them this medication and that should stop it, and that's it. That's why I have more respect for psychology, because at least there was, what was her name? Oh, God bless her, she was a tiny little thing. Oh God, I'm so sorry. I think her name might have been Michelle. She was like a psychologist. She knew to just back off and leave me alone. She didn't give me any hassle, but all the women gravitated towards her because she was helping them try and understand it. And she was doing a fantastic job, whereas all the psychiatrists cared about was giving it a medication. They didn't take into account anyone's cultural background, anyone's religion. You can't call yourself. You see, the whole thing with psychiatrists and psychologists as well, they can't stand the fact that they're not classified as a science or a medicine. They're a pseudoscience. So my whole argument is, if you want to be taken seriously, know what it is you're actually looking at and know what it is you're diagnosing, and give them the correct names and terminologies, because they haven't taken into account the small percentage of people who are dealing with the supernatural. I think that people in the mental health industry should be taught when they're doing their training, whether it's a doctor or a nurse or whatever, they should be taught a subsection in their training that deals with the supernatural and the occult, because it is real. The supernatural is part of the occult, same as the paranormal is part of the occult. Hi. So, they need to take into consideration that there's part of the brain that they have no clue about, that they need to take with a bit more respect, because then if they did, they'd actually be able to help the people going in there. There are 100% absolutely people out there that deserve to be in those places, that deserve to be on medication, that need help and need the therapy, but they are like throwing everyone into the same pot. And some of the things shouldn't be in that pot. You know, you can't tar everyone with the same brush just because, you know, if it walks like a duck, it could be a penguin, it could be a mallard, it could be a swan, it could be a goose. You know, like just because it's got feathers and webbed feet and flies, it doesn't mean they're all a duck. You know, so stop diagnosing everyone as a duck when there's swans and geese and mallards and all that out there. It's like they'd save so much money in the mental health. Paranormal stuff would vanish overnight. They'd actually get to the root cause of the problem. People like me are trying to show them, like, if you really care about people's mental health, then prove it. Because you're not proving it. All you're proving is that you don't know what you're talking about. You're putting people's lives in danger because you don't know what you're talking about. I witnessed things firsthand at that hospital, Fieldhead Hospital, with like when there were patients in there that were too much for them to handle, they would just hook them up to a drip and knock them out for like 2-3 days straight. One of them they deemed as being like a threat to the patients. She played rugby for, she was representing Great Britain in the All Blacks, in the Olympics or something. And she was absolutely terrified, and they made out like she was like Frankenstein's monster when she was scared and running around, you know, trying to, you could tell from her eyes she was terrified and that she was completely with it, but she was having trouble communicating her fear and like not knowing why she was there. And she would, things were getting dizzy, like she'd get dizzy all the time, and so she'd lay down, and the way they treated her was horrendous. When she started running around the ward and that, they like hit the alarms and made out like she was like some freak that needed to be absolutely afraid of. And like me and some of the girls were like, what are you talking about? Her name was Abby, I think. Anyway, they ended up sedating her and just leaving her completely knocked out for like about 4 or 5 days before they moved her out. Turns out she had a brain infection. It had nothing to do with mental health. She was terrified because she had a brain infection, they think, from, you know, the scrums and rucks and mauls and that from playing rugby. They'd never even done a physical. They never did a physical on me. It's only because I demanded they did a blood test to prove that I had cocaine or that I had drugs in my system, that I was proven right that my ex had drugged me in that. But they weren't gonna, like, all they saw was like the outer thing and thought, here we go. Like the girl that was deaf, the big girl that was in there that was deaf, and she used to throw these violent fits in that, but nobody could speak sign language. And the only way they dealt with her was to keep her locked up in her room 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. They never let her out of her room. And when on the odd occasion, when they did let her out, they'd like hover over her and make her frustrated. She'd be trying to communicate with them that, you know, like she wasn't being heard in that. So then she'd lose her temper because just out of sheer frustration, the first thing they'd do is knock her out. You wouldn't see her for a couple of weeks. She ended up at one point, like, they'd just hook you up on a drip if they wanted to keep you quiet. It was absolutely horrendous. When they don't want to deal with you, they just like slip your drugs and stuff and keep you knocked out. Put a noose by your side It was, oh my God, it was just horrible. I made sure to take a mental note of everything they were doing. They wouldn't even let us pray and like have prayer meetings in our rooms, even though our doors were wide open and they were walking up the halls every few minutes. We weren't allowed to like console each other and like sit and read our Bibles together. The African nurses that were there weren't even allowed to pray with me. We had to like sit out in public places and talk about God in the open, and like it was the they do things like I've got noted on a piece of paper. I documented times and dates and everything so that when I took them to court, they'd be able to go look on their secret cameras that they try to make out like they don't have. But my sister used to work in the psych ward, so I know that they have the cameras. So I thought I'll just do the dates and times. Really sadistic nurses that would pretend to, for the ones where, because I wasn't allowed to have a phone cord for a while, because my ex tried to say I was suicidal. So I had to take my phone to be charged in the office. And like I'd like leave it there for like 2-3 days and come back and it hadn't even been charged. But they'd do it on purpose. The girls would go back to get, because it wasn't just me, it was all these Emily and all that. They'd purposefully not charge our phones just to be sadistic. I'd 5 days in a row I keep asking to use my phone. I keep being, oh, in a minute 5 days in a row. They took away my legal right to have my phone. Well, you can ask for your phone anytime, Debbie. I said I was asking for 5 days straight. I was asking for 3 months to get medical help because my skin was rotting because of the constant vomiting, forcing the pills down my throat, because they'd decided that being a Māori reverend and knowing how to heal souls was a mental illness. They decided that because I stuck feathers in my hair, which under the equality law is my legal right to do so, I don't have to explain my religion or my culture or my race to anybody. But they tortured me for mine. They made me have to answer for every single thing I did, even though nobody looked at my evidence. Nobody went and questioned my sons. The police didn't even check the weed that I sent them to prove that it was laced. Nobody did a thing. And then I find out it's because the people in the UK were being told by the people in America to shut me the hell up because my codes were doing things that they did not want getting out. But had the doctors have been worth their weight in their medical degree, they would have been on it like a car bonnet. They would have looked at all of my evidence. They would have sat and listened to my science. There was the doctor that actually did, what would you call it? I was left in the hospital for like 7 hours until these two doctors came to ask me questions to decide whether I needed to like go to hospital or not. When I was telling this male doctor about my work in occult physics, he said to me, "You're absolutely right." And he said, do you have a university degree? Like, have you gone to university for this? And I said, no. And he was like, wow, sort of thing. So, but then obviously I had to go to hospital just to be kept an eye on. And then that's when they did the blood test. And then the doctor came back the next day and said, do you take cocaine? Are you on any opioids? And I said, I knew it. I knew that he'd put cocaine in my pizza because I tasted it. It took 7 days to get that chemical taste out of my mouth. And the weed, I hold my hands up when I can afford it for pain. I need it now because what happened was they laced the weed with the opioids. They put the cocaine in my pizza. I don't know what they thought was happening, but because I was being starved as well as the fact that my ex-husband was slowly poisoning me over the course of what I can gather is about 18 months, judging from some of the videos, my older videos that I have on YouTube, I had no idea I was being drugged. It was actually my son, Thomas, who came to me and said, Do you remember how Dad used to like randomly find weed everywhere? And I was like, oh my God. And then because my ex husband was insisting that he made my breakfast. And if I got up and made my breakfast, he used to get really shit. He used to say it was for his mental health to get up and make me coffee and bring me toast and that. But he was putting, because I've got videos and stuff on my Instagram where I'm talking about how my skin keeps going white and I'm losing weight really fast, but my filling started falling out of my teeth now. I couldn't understand it. And then I'd get like blue spots and I'd get like all like not dizzy, but like lightheaded, like I was drunk and that. But yeah, and I'd make jokes of it, thinking, oh, it's just because I'm like losing weight really fast and I'm on a caveman diet and blah blah blah. Turns out he was drugging me. I've got videos on my YouTube where I'm like, I know I'm sounding sluggish, but it's just because it's and no, it's like, no, I was sounding sluggish because he was drugging me. And then, oh, I'm a poor victim of this. And no, I had the evidence and nobody checked the evidence. Nobody looked at anything because what happened was a few years ago, they all started figuring out that the codes I was working on was going to expose a massive international pedophile ring, which we now know as the Epstein files. I had already started talking about Obama and Clinton and Tom Hanks and, all of that. And then after those plane crashes started happening in is it New Jersey with the helicopter crash and the plane crash and all of that, and then like in Philadelphia and that's when I started linking the crashes with Donald Trump and Elon Musk, and going into my codes and that's when I started realizing Donald Trump was involved with the Epstein thing, and I started blowing the whistle, and then it blew up from there. So my codes predicted everything that's happening to King Charles and that, and these doctors almost killed me. And I've been able to alert the world to the extent of what's going on. Like people like Keir Starmer. Keir Starmer just gave £1 billion to Jeffrey Epstein's human trafficking shipping company associates. £1 billion. And this whole thing with Pegasus, that they're planning to kill everyone's kids and, including like the king's grandchild. This is all stuff that I said, everything happening with Andrew. I said it was all going to happen because of my codes. If the hospital had have succeeded in killing me, I wouldn't have been able to warn anyone about any of this, because they looked at what was happening to me and thought, yeah, she's nuts. Yeah, but my insanity is trying to save the King of England. My insanity is trying to save his grandchildren. His own mother has been doing everything she can to defy the laws of physics to prove that her family are in danger, and if he doesn't listen, he's going down with Starmer, and he's on the brink because people are getting ready to head to London with their pitchforks and torches, and they're about to go after, like, they're going to start knocking things down, and the police, I'm telling you now, they're going to stand out the way, because size versus mass, eh? Weight versus mass. Mass is going to win every time. So he's on the brink. He's teetering on the edge, and I'm screaming as loud as I can, banging the drum. If Fieldhead Hospital had have gotten their way, I'd be dead by now. If people like Mark Carney got their way, I'd be dead by now. Donald Trump wanted to bring in the law, kill people with mental illness because they're targeting people like me. They're threatening me. We're going to, when they go after foreigners and immigrants and blah, 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 it's targeting me, it's threatening me. Look at what we can do. And it's like, do it. Because, like, I don't have my kids. My kids turn their backs on me because my ex-husband made them see me in a way that I'm not going to blame them. I don't blame them. I'm the children. They've been left with a psychopath. They've been left with a serial sex predator psychopath. He's got cases against him from other victims. I've got witnesses, but none of this was investigated. None of our claims were investigated, because if I win, then they all go down. Not just Chris, but the people that put Chris and Martin and they up to it, the Hillary Clintons, the Obamas, the Bidens, the Trumps, the Starmers, the von der Leyens, the Zelensky, like they all go down, because then I was proven right. And for me to be proven right does what? Proves God exists. Because what do I say? I'm God's soldier. I'm God's messenger. I'm the real one. So while they're busy shoving medication and having a go at everybody else saying they can talk to God, turn around and say to them, prove it. Because I can prove it. I've developed an entire science that proves that I can talk to God, but you have to change your view of who you think God is. But I can prove it, and my powers speak for themselves. I only have to point somebody out now, and God takes them out within a couple of days. Like with Macron and Zelensky, and Macron and von der Leyen, and that one from Denmark, is it? I don't know. What's your name? Calais, or the Kallas? Just point them out, and within a couple of days, they're in the firing line for like massive controversies and stuff. I'm the real deal. And I'm the real deal, because unlike everybody else that claims they can talk to God, I'm the only one that has been put through the trial by fire. It's in the Bible. I mean, so masses of countries of rich and famous people do not target one woman if she's nuts. But nobody else is smart enough to figure that out. And this is what I'm saying. If you want to call yourself a psychiatrist or a psychologist, or you want to work in the mental health industry, what I suggest you do is you go to your medical schools or wherever it is that you get your bunkum degrees from that lets you think you can call yourself a doctor. And say to them, we need to be learning about this occult, supernatural, paranormal stuff, because we are leading them to Mark Carney's death chambers. And those people are people like Kurt Cobain and Freddie Mercury and Charles Dickens and Edgar Allan Poe. Edgar Allan Poe, my God, can you imagine the stuff they would have had him on? They would have never have let him out. They would have said that he was like too morbid, had a fascination with death and stuff. But I mean, like William Shakespeare, they would have said that he was like confused with his gender and all that sort of thing. But nobody understands with William Shakespeare. He was literally writing spells. He's a sorcerer. He's an actual word sorcerer, and nobody gets it. If you look at everything he writes, knowing that he's a word magician, you will see his plays in a completely different way. I'm telling you now. Pure magic, that man. They would have had him like hooked up to a drip. Mark Carney would have pushed that needle in and had him done for, they would have said that he was like had multiple personalities or something. Charles Dickens would have absolutely been diagnosed with schizophrenia, multiple personalities, because he used to have arguments with the characters he wrote in A Christmas Carol. Apparently he could be heard having arguments with Ebenezer Scrooge and Marley and all that, like upstairs in his room. He'd be arguing with his characters, but people used to say it's because he loves his characters so much, he brings them to life. I'm a writer, I get it. But none of these people do. None of these people, what did that to me, none of them even knew who Carl Jung was. And he's literally the godfather of occult psychology. He was the one that started piecing together the connection between the paranormal and mental health. He just understood it differently. Like I like to say, I finished his work. I finished Tesla's work as well. But yeah, so it's like I understand why I got diagnosed with what I did. However, there should be laws put in place that before they even go anywhere near medication and locking people away from their kids and their phones and that, they should be forced to do investigations. If the person's got evidence, if the person can sit down and you do the blood test and prove they're telling the truth and look through the cameras and speak to the children and do it properly, 90% of these hospitals would be cleared up for other things, because the mental health statistics would drop phenomenally. You wouldn't need the medications anymore, which is why they don't want to cure people. There's no money in the cure. But if you're only getting into psychiatry and psychology and mental health for the money, you shouldn't be doing that for a job. If you want to have the privilege of having access to people's childhood traumas and their past life karmas and their repressed primal scream and that sort of thing, if you're going to have privilege to have access to their religion and their deepest, darkest fears and that, you should have to earn the right to be sitting in front of them. Because for somebody to be able to trust you enough to open up their entire soul to you is a privilege, not a right. And it's a right that, a privilege that certainly the people I've had to deal with have absolutely not only taken for granted, but they went above and beyond to break the law just to put me in my place and prove me wrong. The second to last doctor I saw before I got released, before I got let out, screamed at me and said, "Don't you know I control you?" And I said, "No, you don't." I said, "You can't even do your job properly." I'm paraphrasing here. I said, "Every patient you have coming in comes out in tears, and then I have to fix it." So I said, "You're like," he was so angry. He was never seen again. And then it was the one that got in after that. The nurses went to them, Jody and Sally Ann, God bless them. I want to offer them jobs. I swear to God, I want to offer them jobs. I kept a mental note. And Maria want to offer her a job as well. Jody and Sally Ann and Maria, they went to this other doctor and they said, "She doesn't deserve to be in here." From day one, I had nurses saying, "Why are you in here?" The patients kept saying, like, "Why are you in here?" I had a nurse come into my room and she said, "I'm sneaking in. Don't tell anyone I'm coming in." She said, "This is my last day." But she said, "I just want to tell you, I think what's happened to you is absolutely disgusting." And she said, "I'm furious." She said, "You don't deserve to be in here." And she said, "I just want to tell you, I think you're really brave." And she said, "You hold your head up high." And she said, "And you fight them and you make sure you fight them hard." Because she said, "When you get out of here," she said, "I have no doubt that they're going to have to be paying you for what they've put you through." And I think towards the end, they knew they'd messed up because they suddenly like let go of all their restrictions. I was allowed to go outside whenever I wanted. It was just like overnight. "Oh yeah, you can have your phone back. Oh yeah, you can." I know my sister rang up and threatened to get lawyers involved because they'd kept me from my phone. Because my ex made out like I was putting stuff on Instagram that was upsetting my kids, but it was actually evidence that my kids was giving me that I was putting up on my Instagram, always knowing one day those photos would end up working in my favour in my case against my ex. Like how he claimed he had nothing to do with putting the cocaine in the pizza, and then after I'd shown CCTV footage of the cops turning up outside his house, he suddenly scrubbed the oven clean, and my son took photos of it, and then my son got sick after he ate in the oven, because I was saying don't eat the pizza if he cooks anything in the oven until I can get a sample. Don't eat anything. It's how I knew they were listening, watching our messages and stuff, because like they were private messages, and then he cleaned the oven, and then my son took photos and I put it up on the thing, and I'm like, why would he be cleaning the oven? Like, here's the evidence this, here's the evidence that. Yeah, and nobody did a thing because they were told step back and shut up. Although they did try to set me up for something with PC right, but I got all that on camera as well. So just taking my evidence because I've always known the day was going to come when I would be getting justice and then they would all be getting taken down because my Indigenous rights were violated, which is protected under the Geneva Convention. Your Indigenous rights, like it's an actual thing. You under the Geneva Convention, if you're Indigenous, you have the right. You don't have to answer to anyone when it comes to how you practice your religion, and that, if, especially if you're like a prisoner, they can't stop you from being Indigenous. So they broke my Indigenous rights because I declared myself a political prisoner, because everything that was happening to me was because I was blowing the whistle and trying to defend Vladimir Putin, and and at the time I thought Donald Trump. Little did I know he was in on the bloody thing, because then it turns out that he was connected to Hillary Clinton and all that. So everything I was saying, everything I was putting up, ended up being 100% correct. But if they had have gotten their way, I'd be dead now, and I wouldn't have been able to warn anyone. I wouldn't have been able to warn the king about Pegasus, how they're planning to, do that fake pandemic thing, how they want to start killing off the kids. The schools have already started lining the kids up to get their shots, and Pegasus is designed to kill children. This pandemic that they're going to put out now, with the vaccines of the kids and that, it's to kill the children. Then they can have the organs, they can get the tissues, they can do all sorts, get the children into foster care, all of that. And I've been trying to warn the king. I said, they'll get you. I said, and then they're going to go after your grandchildren. I said, they want to stop your bloodline. And then it was announced, yeah, I was right about everything. Keir Starmer's getting ready to kill off the king's grandchildren. And he paid Jeffrey Epstein's human trafficking shipping company £1 billion for whatever reason. Rachel Reeves was like, yeah, that's a good idea. Let's give them £1 billion. And then let's go to war for Ukraine because we need to get more kids because they're running out of kids. Because everyone's getting caught up in scandalosos. And it was everything that I said that was going to happen back in the days of my blog. And nobody thought I was crazy then. Everybody thought I was a threat. But those doctors weren't smart enough to figure it out. So I had to do their job for them. And that's pretty hideous that all of these doctors with all their expensive degrees and their immigration papers to come in and say, yeah, come and treat these people, have all been shown up by an uneducated, barefoot, mighty woman. And I'm telling you now, they need to retrain these doctors. They need to have conferences, and they need to train them up when they're going for their degrees in the science of occult physics, which involves the paranormal and the supernatural. And then people like, well, I was going to say people like me, but I'm literally the only one. I'm the only one. I'm the only one that can do this. I'm the only one that knows this stuff. Because why? God. Because I can prove it. But it is a science. The paranormal, the psychic sciences is a thing, and it involves the paranormal, and it involves the subconscious mind, like the imbalance of the subconscious mind. You need to be able to understand the person's dreams that nobody gets right. Oh my God. So, if they want to get inside people's heads and have the privilege of using their knowledge to heal that person's soul, they need to know who it is they're talking to first. And I think they'd probably find that there'd be a small percentage of people that were handed to them that would be very humbling for them to be around. Because there's some people out there that are so smart who are being treated like they're pariahs because they've been given a diagnosis of schizophrenia or autism or something, and they're just so smart. They exist on a frequency that normal people can't hear. Like I said, like English and Dolphin, who, if they would just be allowed to express themselves, we'd see genius come out of these people, the likes of which history has never seen before, because finally they'd be around people who understood them. People like Van Gogh and Kurt Cobain and that, if they had have come to my school, they wouldn't have did what they did to themselves. They would have been able to figure themselves out. I would have been able to explain to Van Gogh and even like Da Vinci where that curiosity and that need and that suffering and that pain comes from. I'd be able to, 5 minutes with them, I'd be able to have them sorted, because I was doing it with the girls that were inside. I'd just like make a posy of a couple of things, I'd dig out the garden. Next thing you know, those girls weren't needing sleeping tablets, but apparently that's a mental illness. And yet their grandmothers and their great grandmothers and great great grandmothers were probably doing the exact same thing. Everybody grew up with if you've got a cold, put an onion on your foot, or like if you've got a cold, drink hot lemon and honey. How is that any different to the posies I was picking to help the girls sleep? Do you know what I mean? So, I mean, if you put baking soda down in your shoes to get rid of the odor, that's witchcraft. That would be considered mental illness. Like that's how ridiculous it is. Unable to see outside the textbook, and it's wrong. If you're going to call yourself a psychiatrist or a psychologist, you need to be able to understand the human mind on a level that exists outside the normal frequencies, that exist outside the Schumann resonance. And they need to understand the Schumann resonance and how easy it is to use the Schumann resonance to manipulate the mammalian mind. All this dicking about with their towers and their windmills and their wind turbines and all that, it's messing with our whales and dolphins and stuff. All their stupid solar panels and car batteries and that, it's messing with birds, it's messing with the whales and dolphins, and they're all beaching, and yeah, it's absolutely horrendous. So that's why I said you can't say that you care about the planet if you're putting up solar panels and windmills and that, because you're killing the planet to get the materials, and then you're killing the animals being affected by the electromagnetic energy that's coming off the crap that it's creating and the poisons that are seeping into the earth and that. So, the solar panels are to kill off all the land. They want to be able to control the food. They want to get people, just like Wally, where they tell you what to eat, they give you the selection, but let you think you're having a choice, so that you'll forget at one point you used to be able to go out into fields and pick your own. My boys and I grew up when I was little with my mum and my my auntie, like getting watercress and that out the river and picking poo-ha. And even in Australia, we were going around picking poo-ha out of people's gardens and that, giving them like free weeds and that to have boil-ups and stuff. I raised my boys to pick all the wild berries and that. They want to take that away from us. So the king and his son don't have a right to say they care about the planet. And I say that with love, because I'm the one who's risked my ass to save your family's life. And I think he needs to hear the truth. He needs somebody to kick him up the backside and say, you need to wake up, mister, and see the friends that you're hanging around, because you're letting them get away with so much. It's only a matter of time, but before your grandkids are the only ones left. And who are they going to have to defend themselves? Because by that point, no one's going to care, because they're already calling for the king to go. They're already calling for independence. They're already calling to get rid of, lords and all that. They're already calling for the death penalty, and they're already suggesting that the king be one of them. And I told him it was going to happen, and it's getting to that point, and he's still not listening. So either he doesn't want to listen, or they've got him under the Schumann resonance. And he's getting treatment, isn't he? He's getting medical treatment. And if they're giving him injections and stuff like that, then I mean, I don't even want to think about that. I can't even. I'm grieving at the thought that I'm going to spend the rest of my life possibly not having a monarchy anymore. I grew up a royalist. I grew up so proud. It was only after the divorce with Charles and Diana that I stopped caring, and then fell into the conspiracy thing for a bit because of my ex-husband. I never believed that they were lizards, though, because I know that's not true. Like I've explained all that, but yeah, I'm ashamed. But everything that I got wrong, that I thought about the royal family, I've paid off that karmic debt by the simple fact that I have been put through hell the second I started figuring out that their plan was going to be to get rid of the monarchy, and it started with killing the Queen with COVID. And now they're going to do the whole Pegasus thing. And I said, they're going to come after your grandkids. I said, we have to protect George. We have to make sure this is about Georgie. We have to make sure that George gets to be king, because the king's mates, Starmer, his government, Bill Gates, all of them are hell-bent on making sure that there's none of them left. And I figured all of this out, and I went to the king. And because of Elon Musk and that, I don't even know if my messages get out, because he's got a really tight stranglehold on me, but it doesn't stop me from talking. It doesn't stop me from trying. I can't give up. I can't leave here knowing I didn't save the monarchy. I get frustrated and I yell at him and all of that, but it's because, but again, God keeps saying, don't give up on him, don't give up, don't give up. I said to Queen Elizabeth, I mean, I know this sounds nuts, but again, I understand why they said I was, but again, I've proven, I know what I'm talking about. I've proven that this is an actual science, that this is the thing. This is talking to the mind of God, or talking through the mind of God, if you understand the fact that God is the atom of consciousness, that every atom, inside every atom exists consciousness. All atoms know exactly what to do. That's consciousness. Your conscience knows what to do. It's like your compass north. So I can prove it. And I say to her, I'm screaming as loud as I can. I can't do it anymore. He's not listening. I don't know what to do. And she said to me, would you, but what if it was your son? And that hit me hard, because I said to her, I am fighting for my sons. And she said, so am I. And I was like, like I felt it. She was really hurting for what she knew was coming with Andrew and Charles. And yeah, so she said to me, what if it was yours? What if it was your son? And I said, yeah, it's both of my sons. I'm fighting for both of my sons. Yeah, and she said, so am I. So I was like, right, okay, let's do this. So it doesn't matter how many times I stomp and storm off and say, I can't save him anymore, blah, blah, blah. I can't not, because I'm a mum fighting to save my children from the same people that she's fighting to save her children from. So we're mums united. Princess Diana's in there. Even Margaret Thatcher jumped in a few codes at some point. Queen Victoria's been really strong. Tsar Nicholas, like because they're all people trying to save the monarchy. I've been performing miracles on X, and I don't even know if the king's seeing them. But I'm hoping like hell he is. I'm hoping like how somebody's showing him those messages, because it's getting to the point now where if we don't do something, it's like all I can see is the king standing there, and Starmer and Bill Gates and Lemmy and Yvette Cooper and Trump and Zelensky, like von der Leyen, Schwab, all of them, as like black shadows just tiptoeing, creeping up on the king like black widow spiders, and they're just getting ready to strike. And I'm saying, wake up! Your Majesty! Bang, 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 turn around! To my horse throat. Because they literally tried to silence me because they know that I want to get into TV and radio and that with my shows and my voiceovers and my radio station and that. So they tried to take my voice from me. So I'm sitting here, my voice is my throat is killing me because, with the constant vomiting, all the acid like completely destroyed my esophagus. So if you hear me coughing and choking and like that, it's just because my throat is scarred. It took so much damage. 3.5 years, my throat has never recovered. I've tried everything to try and fix it, and I can't because I talk. But I need to talk for a living. So I need to talk to save lives. I need to talk to save children, So I'm doing my best. My scars split open. My C-section scars, my hernia scars split open from the constant vomiting. I was vomiting twice a day. The scars split open, fatty tissue and bits of my whatevers were starting to show through the tears in my skin. My C-section scars split open. And I was asking for 3 months for medical help, and I didn't get any help. And it got to the point where my skin was rotting and was turning grey, and I stunk. And the only thing I could do was clean it out with salt that I was stealing from the cafeteria. Run it under the hot shower, pour salt into it, and then bite down on the blankets and pillows and that, and scream for 2 hours because it was the most excruciating thing I'd ever felt. But it was my dad that taught me about pouring salt into open wounds, to keep them clean. So, and then it got to the point where I went to, like, it was seeping. It was pussing and seeping, and my heart was starting to give out. I was too scared to go to sleep because I was being starved as well. At the same time, I was going days and days and days without food. And I was too scared to go to sleep. So one day when Marie, God bless her, I'd say, bonjour, Marie. Every time I'd say goodbye, every time I'd say hello, au revoir, because she spoke French. She's from Mauritius, I think. And I took her aside and I said to her, I've been asking for help. I said, can you please help me? And she looked at my stomach and she goes, how long's that been like that? And I said, about 3 months. I said, I've been asking for a few weeks. She goes, and they haven't done anything. And I said, no. And she said that, like, you went to them for help for that and they saw that and they didn't do anything. And I said, no. And she was like, and she just stormed off. She was so angry. And then within like an hour they came and they like checked me over and everything. But because I'm allergic to antibiotics and I'm allergic to everything, they didn't know what to give me. And it was actually my sister who recommended that they gave me an antibiotic cream. And then they gave me, was it Valium for the pain and a sleeping tablet to help with the pain, but I became allergic to them and I couldn't have them. So I just had to grin and bear it. And it was 7 days before they took the swabs and then sent the swabs off. So it was like 2.5 weeks after they knew my condition before I even got medication for it. So, how I survived it, I don't know. But I tell you what, I've got a bag full of evidence in there where I documented times and dates and, I time-stamped things for things that were done, like when I was vomiting blood. And she tried to say it was because of what I'd been eating. I've got photos, like I was just starting to spit up blood. And she said, that's something you've eaten. I said, I haven't eaten in 3 days. I haven't been given food in 3 days. So that was Janice. But Jodie and Sam and Sally Ann and Marie, oh my God, I would love to offer them jobs. I want to say to them, come and work at my foundation. Like, come and put your skills to actual good use. Go where you belong. Yeah, and come and help kids, and I'll relocate you and your families, and yes, I kept a mental note. I kept a written note as well. So yeah, so this whole thing was to just say, like, I understand why they thought I was like the others, but that has now, because they didn't do their job, because they violated my human rights, my indigenous rights, and my violated the equality laws, and cruel and unusual punishment. They are going to pay for it dearly. That they should have done their job in the first place when I got taken there. They're going to pay for this dearly. It's going to cost them a lot of money. This ends up on the news. This ends up going out around the world. My story's going to go like worldwide, go viral, because I know what I'm talking about, and my knowledge is going to save millions of people, starting with children, starting with the children, which is why they did this to me in the first place. My husband, my ex-husband, my students, my clients, and they're all the ones that joined in helping me. They're all going to end up going down in my story as the people who tried to kill me to protect pedophiles and human traffickers. And now I understand the prophecy when I was told that they'd become the most hated people in the world. The police that tried to set me up, the police that didn't do anything, the doctors, the nurses, the social workers, all of them, the prime ministers, Jess Phillips, all of them. Well, I mean, they're all involved in the grooming gang stuff anyway, aren't they? So, but now you know why, and now you know why they're blaming Pakistani grooming gangs and that, because they're throwing Muslims under the bus to make them the scapegoats for what they've been doing behind closed doors. £1 billion Keir Starmer and Rachel Reeves have just given to Jeffrey Epstein's human trafficking shipping company, PALS. And they're going to spend 1.6 billion on the digital ID. So they've spent just as much, almost just as much, giving to human traffickers as they are to put a lockdown on people owning businesses. Like, pretty much the same amount. So yeah, so I've got to keep banging the drum. I've got to keep squealing, because as far as I'm concerned, I'm not just trying to save the king. I'm trying to save Great Britain, because nobody else knows how. Nobody else can do it, because I can prove that I talk to God, unlike everybody else. But if they had done their job in the first place, my evidence would have spoken to it for itself, and I wouldn't be in this position, and now they wouldn't be paying for it with their having to sell their houses and their cars. And the African doctor, the little wee African guy, his Dr. B started with B, and he was about 1'3", and he had a really expensive car, and I used to see him out my window getting into his car. It was like it was like a real posh, expensive car, and I just remember thinking to myself, when I get out of here, and this gets out what you've done to me, you're going to have to sell that car, and I'm going to use it to take my kids on a holiday. And like every time, a mil per pill, I'd say, because I'm going to make them pay £1 million for every pill they force me to swallow, because they're helping to kill our monarchy, the NHS, with this whole, faking the whole pandemic, quick get the vaccines, blah, blah, blah. Just like with the Queen, they knew exactly what they were doing and what was going to happen to her when they injected her. They knew. They already knew those vaccines were killing people, and yet they still gave the Queen the vaccine. What she really died from wasn't old age. Boris Johnson spilt the beans on what she really died from, is a side effect of the COVID injection. Technically, same with Prince Philip. What he died from is a side effect of the COVID vaccine. So, yeah, and now they're trying to do the same thing with the grandkids. But to cover it up, they've got to do it to all the kids as well to hide it. Smoke and mirrors like they did with the Queen. But they won't ever admit it. That's why Starmer and the NHS are hiding the death records and that, because they don't want people to know that they did all of that to cover up the fact that they're trying to kill the monarchy off, like they did with Queen Victoria with typhoid. Typhoid was a military biochemical weapon that they gave to all the soldiers to make them immune, and it killed everyone, including Prince Albert, the husband and son. And was it King George? They bloody euthanized. I only found that out the other day. Gave him pleurisy. They gave him COVID 1.0 and then euthanized him against his will. And nobody said anything. Because, yeah, and I'm saying, but don't you see, Your Majesty, they've been trying to do it for quite a while now because they want to thin the herd so that when they get King Trump in place, he can take over and you rule everyone. And, you know, and then people like Elon Musk post things up on X that makes people think that it's real, but it's all lies. It's all to instill fear. It's all to get people arguing and getting scared and kicking off civil rights, and that's which is what Elon is gagging to have happen here. But it's not going to be a civil riot. It's not going to be a civil war. It's going to be a revolution. Because this is what I keep trying to say to people. All you have to do to get rid of Keir Starmer is to bypass Parliament and go straight to the King and petition the King, because by law, under God's law and natural law, he is required by law to answer to the people if the Parliament won't do it on behalf of the people. If Parliament aren't doing their job, you can bypass parliamentarian law and sovereign law and go above the King to incite natural law and God's law, and then the King is legally bound to answer for the people. Otherwise, according to the Magna Carta, the people have a right to dethrone the King and have a revolution, which completely bypasses Starmer. All you have to do, all your digital ID signatures and your whatever, you know, you're calling for a general election signatures, don't even bother taking them to Parliament. Sovereign law is above Parliament. That's the laws that the King makes up. His King's prerogative. Prerogative, is it? But above those two laws are natural law and God's law that the King answers, because the King is God's representative on earth. So God tells the King what to do, and if the King doesn't listen to the God's law or natural law, then according to the Magna Carta, the people can then get the King off the throne. But it's done legally, as opposed to how it's going to happen at the moment, where it's going to be through a bloody plot to take down the monarchy and to abolish them and have them go to trial. People are already saying that because of the Epstein thing, that Andrew and Charles and that need to be put on trial. So if he's no longer king, he no longer has protection. So, yeah. So I understand why people would have looked at me and thought I was crazy, but I bet they're not saying that now. Because the thing is, from day one, I've been able to prove myself. The others can't. And that's all you need to do. If they say they can talk to God, if they say they can talk to whoever, blah, 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 say prove it. Because to talk to God is a supernatural experience. You have to have access to the realms of the supernatural. And the only way you can do that is if you have an ascension. And I'm an ascension scientist. I literally wrote the science. I literally wrote the book on having ascensions, My Long Road to Ascension, but it needs to be rewritten. I am the only ascension scientist in the world. Thank you very much. Because God put me here to make me have the experience, because He knew I had the kind of brain that had to figure out what the hell was going on and why. And as a result, I became an occult physicist and theoretical physicist and evolutionary theorist and rocket scientist. Technically, I'm a rocket scientist, although I prefer to call it a space navigation system because I'm cool like that. I have to be the rebel. So, yeah, I'm the only ascension scientist. I'm the only occult physicist. I'm the only one of my kind. I'm the only one that can teach it. But do you think that psychiatrists and psychologists are going to want to go back to school to take that class? How foolish would those doctors look having to go back to school to do a seminar to learn my courses, the ones that tried to kill me? Oh, that would be poetic justice, eh? So, well, I mean, they need to have their licenses taken from them based on the stuff I saw. My God, I could write a book just based on the stuff that I saw there. It needs to be shut down. It's barbaric. Um, most of the people in there didn't even need to be in there. They just needed someone to listen to them. They're basically just scared, terrified, frightened kids who were raised in nothing short of hell for households who just needed a cuddle and somebody to tell them that it was going to be okay and that they weren't bad. And that's it, pretty much. Let them have a cry, let them get it out, let them have their duvet days, let them have their take out and have a bit of a self-soothe, and then you'd see a whole different person by the time you were done. That's all they need. But no, they have to make it a big multi-billion pound, multi-billion dollar thing in whatever country you're in. I could save the mental health industry and the NHS billions if they had have just listened to me. So anyway, my alarm for my dinner went off ages ago. And it's probably all cold now, but never mind. So I'm going to go and have my dinner. I thought I was only going to talk for about 20 minutes. It's been an hour and two. God. But nice live. Oh, thank you. I'm sorry I don't. At least someone chat isn't so dry. I'm not here to talk to people. I'm here to practice having my radio talk show. If I pay too much attention to what's been said on the screen, I lose focus and lose the connection of what it is that I'm trying to say. Everything that I say, like this whole thing, that's me talking through the mind of God, the mind of atom, the mind of the conscious universe. Just think of the universe as being inside a human brain. Think of that human as being an atom, and that's God. You are your own creation. You are your own God. The word God means creator, creation, create. You are your own creator, just like every atom, every other atom in the universe. So I'm going to go now, and I shall speak to you later, but there's just some food for thought there, and yeah, it all goes towards my really lovely court case against them all and my epic lawsuit. And if the king hears this and finally wakes up, let it be today, Lord, let it be today.